Hey Collective, today's reading is entitled, What the Hell is Going On with These Karmics? It looks like this reading is completely about the karmic, their state of mind, well-being, or lack thereof, and many of their antics, kind of what they're thinking and feeling and everything else in regards to you, other people in their life perhaps. They're probably even warring with their significant others, per se. So this whole reading is about them. Every one of the energies that I got today were in reverse. And some of the ones that I pulled are pretty explicit in terms of, their very negative and low vibrational state of mind. So let's get right into it. Okay, as a reminder, the overall energy for this week until Saturday evening is Gibo. And Gibo is generally the lucky rune. X marks the spot on the treasure map, as I always like to say, but this one is in reverse, as I've stated. So for the whole week, it represents basically problems with a specific root of an emotional nature or manner. Not understanding why they're going through what they're going through, they're thinking what they're thinking, or even taking any accountability, responsibility for their own thoughts and actions. They haven't, for some reason, come to an understanding of it. I don't know what else to say. So also it talks about greed, loneliness, dependency, over-sacrificing, or believing you are, feeling that you're overwhelmed with your obligations. All those things would add to stress for anybody, of course. I understand that part of it, but the other energies that are being very specific here as far as bribery as well, the greed and loneliness, those are all things that are, of a deliberate nature. You've chosen those actions, those thoughts, those deeds. So, if you're going through it right now, then again, look in the mirror. That's all I have to say. And I'm not trying to be mean about it. I'm trying to wake you up out of your stupor. And I know that'll make you mad, but it is what it is. So Gibo represents number 7 in the Norse numerology. And number 7 is the number of death, and passive contact with the other worlds. It's basically 7-night intervals traditional between the death and the performance of funeral rites, as I've been saying. And it's not often seen in mythology, for the most part. So it's hard to ascertain how they truly viewed that number. And, the examples that we have in terms of Norse numerology, it's kind of a tongue twister, is that most of their numbers were written out, like spelled out kind of a thing. So it's really difficult to ascertain. But like I said, I'm pretty much resolved to really discovering this, as I believe that indeed they did practice this aspect of it as well. It's just something that was lost because most of the records, especially from 2,000 plus years ago, were written on materials such as bone and wood and things like that have a tendency to deteriorate with time. Only the rune masters themselves actually inscribed upon stone. So that's why we have so many of the records lost, as well as, of course, the Christianization of the lands that were traditionally Viking and how they merged together in other lands for the most part as well. We lost a lot of the culture as a direct result of that. So we're trying to piece it together. And again, as I stated, by doing so, I've also made some comparisons to other cultures as well. So there may have been more in common with cultures that we never would have believed otherwise. So it's very fascinating to me. Okay, and Gibo in magic basically helps us to increase the overall luck, power, and positivity of any of the surrounding runes, especially when used as a bind rune. And again, a bind rune is just 2 or more runes that are superimposed upon one another to magnify, each of the energies and polarize them to work together in a more dynamic fashion, so to speak. I've actually made my own bind rune, but it consists of like 9 or 10, and I think I've broken protocols by doing that. But I'm going to have that tattooed from my chest all the way down to my private parts, so to speak. And it says a lot, and there's a lot of very specific, energy, met by that bind rune. But when I get it done, then I'll share that with you. At least most of it. Otherwise, I might get in trouble. Anyways, alright, so the past energy for today, and we've seen this one many times this week, is Dagaz. Now, Dagaz is also in reverse. In fact, they all are, as I've already stated. And it's number 23, which translates to a number 5 in mythology, numerology. And number 5 represents order, time, and space. An ancient Germanic week consisted of 5 nights. It's also the interval that is typically given when expected to respond to some kind of court battle, so to speak, or a hearing. So it's rarely found in mythology and lore, but its operative purpose is very powerful. It's a powerful formula that we see echoed throughout Norse beliefs and the way they conducted their business. Okay. Now, with that having been said, what it stands for in reverse is, again, attitudes, radical changes, completions, and endings. So this whole karmic situation is wrapping up, both in their life. Somebody is making some type of decision-making process, or they're being forced to do so because of the circumstances involved. But it's ending. Somebody has reached their limits. So limits, endings, coming full circle. This is all part of what Dagaz in the reverse means. It also means perhaps being blindsided and maybe a sense of hopelessness as well. Okay. So in magic, what it means is it's basically used for opening and closing of ceremonies and magical renderings of whatever type. Or creative projects for that matter as well. It's also used to bring about transformations and help us transition physically, emotionally, and spiritually in some ways. Now, our present energy for today is Haglis. Now, Haglis basically is also, as I've stated, in the reverse. It represents number 9, and number 9 is one of their holiest numbers. The number of days and nights that the head god Odin himself hung upon the world tree in order to gain the magic, the mystery, and the power of the runes from the Norns. The Norns are like the equivalent of the Fates in Greek and Roman mythology, so to speak. The 3 women, if you will, that are weaving the fate of all humans. Well, gods too, for that matter. Alright, so basically, see, what it means in the reverse is a disruption, disruptive force, negative payoffs. They've done some dirty deeds, and now they're getting, the just rewards from those dirty deeds, so to speak. Some type of a natural disaster may also be occurring in their lives. Catastrophe of some type. Stagnation, loss of power, feeling the pain from the losses, suffering, hardships, crisis, sickness even. All these things are happening in the life of the karmic. And of course, we don't take great joy in this, even though they may have been doing a tremendous amount towards us and acted in very vindictive and unnecessary and unprovoked fashions towards us, simply to have their way or because of envy, jealousy, ego, whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean that we take joy in their suffering. They're just at a different place in their journey than we are. We are a little further ahead in terms of the spiritual evolution. And again, this is not an arrogant thing to say. There are, truths that are relative. They are, they are what they are. So don't get mad at me for stating an obvious. But in magic, it means it's basically used in terms of reflection and meditation, and to help us to remember that no matter how bad things are, they could always be worse. Okay, so that's kind of what it is. It also reminds us that, basically to look up instead of down, look at the positive instead of the negative. Now, in terms of our challenges and obstacles, as though there wasn't enough, this is basically really a karmic reading, but you still need to know because they are still part of your energetic field. Whatever relationship they may have to you, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a significant other, so to speak, or an ex of some kind, or ex-friend, it could be a sibling. It could be literally any one of those types of relationships, but it was somebody who was close to you at some point. So, in terms of our challenges and obstacles, we have Othala in the reverse. It looks like a diamond with legs, but like I said, it's in reverse. So, what this means, well, first off, it's number 24. It's the last rune of the old Futhark, consisting of 24 runes. It's the last one. That translates to number 6, and number 6 translates to vibrant life and strength. This can be used to create or destroy, and in this case, since it's reverse, it's the latter. It's rarely found in mythic contexts, however. Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of other things really to tie it to, at least not now. But what it means in the reverse is recklessness and frustration. Potential legal problems may be occurring in their life, which could actually translate to something that is shared with you as well, depending on the relationship we just referred to. It talks about hassles, lack of order, totalitarianism, so somebody wants to rule by force apparently, and this is why slavery is also part of this. It talks about poverty and homelessness. It talks about getting your bad karma. That's exactly what this means in reverse. It talks about also prejudice of some kind, clannishness, so maybe this other person that's involved in you was different than you in some way, either culturally, ethnically, whatever the case may be. It could be any one of those things that would result in that type of thinking. Clannishness, basically speaks to the fact that it may be more than one person, perhaps even a group, who is involved in these feelings and thoughts and acting against you, whether you know it or not. It's also referring to what a person is simply bound to. So they may be in a group of some kind as well, which is, at least in their opinion, has them bound in some way. Nobody is bound except what you give power over to. You can always say, hell to the no, regardless of the circumstances and, the outcome of saying no to something or somebody. You always have that opportunity, that option. The one thing they can never take from you, no matter what the situation is, unless you give it away willingly, is your self-will. You can always say, hell no, I won't go. I will not submit, whatever the case may be. In magic, it means it's used to strengthen, everything concerned with your family, your heritage, and so on. So you use it to solidify your family ties, partnerships, friendships, things of that nature. Mostly friends. Please forgive me. It's mostly about those who are closest to you, so your siblings or your immediate family, okay? Those of your family, your heritage, your bloodline, so to speak, whether it's one you've just created with somebody else or that which was passed down to you simply through your mother and your father. Okay. And you can use it together with other runes to basically guard your threshold. In other words, guard your home in a defensive posture. Use it with the rune Algiz, for example, which is the peace sign one. Okay, the peace sign one. And that is symbolic of guarding the threshold of your home from negative energies and people. Now, what we got as far as help and advice is concerned is Thurisaz, and it too is in reverse. Now, Thurisaz is Thor's mighty rune, and it means giant. The Thurses were considered giants, and there are many different varieties of giants in Norse mythology. In fact, there's at least 3 worlds where giants are known to exist, okay, of the 9 in the Norse belief system. Now, there's also a lot of evidence to support that once upon a time there were giants in this world as well. The Bible speaks about it. We see it also reflected in many of the world religions as well. We've seen it also in archaeological finds, even here in the Americas. We see it in the records and the logs of earliest explorers. So even though it seems that there are powers that be that want to keep that information for some reason hidden to the public. Why? They don't want us to know what our true history really is and what it consists of. They don't. They only give us the information that's endemic of what it is they want us to believe, or within a window what they want us all to believe. And I know that is going to piss some academics off, especially if they're historians, but I'm sorry, even your own if you will, and the mavericks, the thinkers, those who think outside of the box, who are also, in academia and archaeologists and other things along those lines, they agree. That's not at all the way that historians want us to believe. Well, and others in academia as well. They have their stories put together to reflect a certain storyline, whether it's, in the form of, well, I'll just leave it at that. I can get too much involved in that, and then I would end up having a very long reading. So, what does Thurisaz mean in the reverse? Well, first off, it's number 3 in Nordic mythology. And number 3 represents, and I have these written down because I remember Mediterranean numerology, but I'm still learning the Norse. It's another holy number, and it's vastly represented. It indicates a complete functioning process, and it's the root of force of dynamism. And in runecraft, 3 is used to complete and quicken things, to move things to action. In mythic lore, 3 abounds. The example is Urder, Verdhandi, and Skuld. Odin, Vili, and V. 3 roots of the world tree, Yggdrasil. And also, of course, it talks about the 3 Norns and so many other things. So there's many different, uses of 3 in mythology and their poetic eddas and so on. So it's pretty interesting. All right, but what does Thor's mighty rune mean in the reverse? Well, it means stubbornness, foolhardiness, someone who doesn't heed advice. And I know I've given those who I know are the karmics in my particular circumstances. I tried to give them advice. I've tried to help them before it got to the point where they're suffering like they are, and all they did was mock me all this time until now it's heaping down over their head, and now they never want to admit it, but I'm sorry, it's been recorded. So for 3+ years I've been warning you. Anyways, talks about folly, talks about danger, and that could be danger to you as well. So again, as I stated yesterday, also be on your P's and Q's, okay, especially if you already know who this is. If you don't, doesn't mean stay paranoid in any way, shape, or form. But if somebody or something just strikes you as odd, really pay attention to what's going on. Talks about feeling defenseless as well at this time. And again, this is the karmic. Talks about a compulsion of some type, sense of betrayal, either they being betrayed or still in the mindset of wanting to betray you. Dullness, evil, malice, hatred, torment, feeling spiteful, being a liar. Even rape is involved in this particular rune in the reverse. It just basically reflects we would classify, regardless of cultural belief systems, a bad human being. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Alright, now in magic, basically it's one of the most powerful runes in the Futhark. So what it is basically is used to both strengthen the energy of the other runes, or it is used in a way of warding off evil specifically. Okay, and again, I'm not going to get into the magical applications of these, other than, just give you some idea of how this energy is utilized to give you a better understanding of the energy represented by these symbols we call runes. Alright, so finally, the outcome or the future is Isa. I don't know if it's with long I, Isa, or Isa, but it's ISA in spelling in English. It represents number 11 in terms of its place within the Futhark, which of course comes out to number 2. And number 2 in Nordic numerology is the number of cooperation of the redoubled working of tandem forces. That's a mouthful. It says to operate, it's in operative work, it is sometimes to strengthen, especially physically. In mythological lore, it shows the power of teamwork between complementary pairs. And they give the examples of Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin. I hope I pronounced those correctly. It also talks about Odin's wolves, Geri and Freki. It talks about Arvker and Alsvidr, the horses that pull the sun's wane, or the divine tandem of Loki versus Odin, if you will. Polar opposites in many fashions. Okay. Alright, so one can be looked at, I guess you could say, if you were looking at it from a Christian perspective or a Judeo-Christian perspective, as one being good, the other one being evil. Loki wasn't evil per se. He did sometimes good things, and he used to save the gods or get the other gods out of a bind from time to time. But he was a trickster, and he certainly caused a lot of problems. And, he ended up breeding some of the siblings, that would be those which come against the gods during their end times, which is the Ragnarok. So, like Fenrir, the giant wolf, and forgive me for forgetting how to pronounce the giant serpent, world serpent, as well as the goddess who runs hell, if you will, where half of her body is alive and so on, where the other half is decaying and so on, as in death, representing both life and death of hell. Those are all the siblings, not siblings, forgive me, but the offspring of Loki. Okay, and again, he's considered to be the trickster god who also was responsible for the murder of Balder, the god Balder, god of love and light, if you will. You could say, in a sense, he's representative of like a Christ consciousness or Christ-like. He was loved by all the gods, and he was all about that. He was a warrior, don't get me wrong, as is Christ, but he was more along the lines of love and light, and Loki is responsible for his murder. So, all right. So Isol in the reverse means a breach of loyalty, egomania. So this is what the maniacs are suffering from. They are not to be trusted in any way, shape, or form right now. Their mindset is definitely not your mindset. We may not even be able to understand or comprehend what kinds of things are going through their heads. Well, like I said, we saw things such as rape, and many other very, very low vibrational and negative connotations attached to this energy. So it's pretty nasty. But talks about blindness again, dissipation, treachery, self-delusion, deception, betrayal, guile, stealthiness, ambushes, and plots. So again, somebody within that karmic, energetic field is still plotting, planning, and scheming. Not just against, those who are within their own clique. They're all fighting right now. That's what this is all about. But they're also still scheming, or at least an element is still plotting, planning, and scheming against you and I. So do not let your guard down, but don't be paranoid either, okay? Be warrior-like. Just be self-aware of what's going on around you at all times and respond appropriately, not irrationally or rashly, okay? All right, and that pretty much completes our reading for today, you guys. So I hope it's helpful, and if nothing else, at least you know that these things are, although sometimes, in some of our cases, moving at a snail's pace, it is very, very clearly starting to wrap up. So, and those karmic individuals in our life are basically going through it. They are reaping what they've sown, and you too are about to be rewarded for those of you out there who have been, vibrating at a higher frequency, resonance, and vibration, being the very best and most authentic you can be. My hat goes off to you. I know how difficult that journey is. Okay? Never acquiesce. Keep moving forward. And I just hope to hear from a few more of you, as time goes on. I know I've been out of it for almost 2 months. And again, that wasn't by choice. It was just circumstances, situations I had to deal with. And, I'll share those at a future point in time. I'm not at liberty to do so right now, but you'll understand. Okay? I know you will. And in the meantime, I wish you all the very best. So peace out. Victory to all of you guys, and I'll see you someday, not anytime soon, in Valhalla. Take care.